"This isn't your prescription." The pharmacist held the bottle back, her voice dropping. "Your wife requested the refill. She asked us to double the dosage. But the medication inside, it's not for high blood pressure." I froze. "What is it?" She looked past me, then met my eyes. "Something that causes slow kidney failure. And she's been picking it up for 6 months." My name is Daniel. For 6 months, I thought my fatigue was stress. Our new house, the long hours. My wife Claire said she was worried, bringing me those protein shakes to help. I trusted her. But what the pharmacist just told me connects to a terrifying new trend warned about by Homeland Security. Spouses using medicine as a weapon. The drive home was a blur. I pulled into our driveway, the porch lights she hung glowing. I could hear her laughing inside. I had to go in there and act normal, while knowing the person I loved might be slowly killing me. I walked inside, my smile feeling like cracked plaster. "Hey babe, everything okay?" Claire asked, wiping her hands on a towel. "Just a long day," I said, kissing her cheek. The scent of her perfume, once comforting, now smelled like a lie. She'd been my college sweetheart. We built a life for 12 years. When I started feeling sick 6 months ago, nausea, dizzy spells, crushing fatigue, she was my rock. She scheduled the doctor appointments. She picked up my prescriptions. She made me those protein shakes every morning, saying I needed to keep my strength up. I never questioned it. Why would I? But that night, lying beside her, I replayed every detail. The doctor, a friend of her father's, had diagnosed me with generalized anxiety and high blood pressure. The medication he prescribed made me feel worse. Claire soothed me, saying it was just my body adjusting. She took over all the pharmacy runs. I was too tired to argue. Now the pharmacist's words echoed. "It's not for high blood pressure." I remembered the news story from a few months back. The Colorado dentist convicted of poisoning his wife with eye drops and cyanide. I'd shrugged it off as a monstrous anomaly. But a Department of Homeland Security bulletin from February of 2026 calls it a trend. They warn that domestic partners are increasingly using chemical and biological toxins. The substances are chosen because they mimic natural illness. I felt a cold sweat. My symptoms were a perfect match. The next morning, I watched her. The careful way she scooped the powder, the specific bottled water she used, not from the filter tap. She handed me the shake with a smile. "Drink up, you need it." My hand trembled. I pretended to take a sip, then said my stomach was off. "I'll finish it later at work." Her smile tightened. "Just don't skip it, Danny. It's important." At work, I poured the shake into a sealed container. I called the pharmacist from a parking lot. Her name was Anya. I told her I needed to know what was in it. She was quiet for a long time. "I could lose my license," she said. "But what she told me, I can't unknow. Meet me after my shift, 9 p.m. I killed time in a daze. I searched online, spouse poisoning symptoms. The results were a horror show. Antifreeze, colchicine, a gout medication. Over-the-counter eye drops containing tetrahydrozoline. The latter causes slowed breathing, coma, organ failure, all hard to detect. I found the case study from PubMed, a medical journal, detailing Munchausen syndrome by proxy between 2 adults. A wife injecting her husband with tranquilizers to induce comas. The caregiver creates the sickness to play the hero, or to control, or to kill. My blood went cold. Claire had nursed me so tenderly. Had she also created the cause? At 9 p.m., I met Anya behind the closed pharmacy. She handed me a printout, her face grim. I ran a basic test strip. It picked up traces of tetrahydrozoline. "This is Invisin," she said. "It lowers blood pressure dangerously, causes fatigue, kidney damage. It's not in your prescribed medication. Someone is adding it. And this," she pointed to another marker, possibly colchicine. "It's highly toxic. A few milligrams a day can be fatal over time." She looked at me with pity. "You need to get a specific toxicology screen, but you can't use your normal doctor." I drove home, the container of poison evidence in my bag. Claire was in the living room looking at real estate listings on her laptop. "Looking for a bigger place once you're feeling better," she said brightly. I felt a surge of pure terror. This wasn't just poisoning. This was a plan. I needed proof she was doing it intentionally. I started with the garbage. While she showered, I took the kitchen bag to the garage. Beneath coffee grounds, I found it. an empty box of extra-strength eye drops. The brand was clear, but also a small, unlabeled brown glass vial tucked inside an old newspaper. It was empty. It looked like something from a compounding pharmacy or bought online. My phone camera clicked silently. This was my first piece of hard evidence. I began a secret log. I documented every shake, pretending to drink but secretly disposing of them. I noted my symptoms. I bought a hidden camera, a tiny thing disguised as a charger block, and pointed it at the kitchen counter. 3 days later, I caught her. The footage was clear. She prepared my shake, then turned her back to the camera. Her shoulders moved, a quick, furtive pour from a small bottle she kept in her robe pocket. She stirred it, then turned around, her face a calm mask. That bottle wasn't the eye drops. It was the brown vial. She was escalating. Confrontation was impossible. She'd deny it. She'd gaslight me. She might panic and give me a fatal dose. The DHS warning was clear. These incidents are driven by accessibility of information and the perceived difficulty of detection. I was in a silent war with an enemy who shared my bed. I needed an ally and a real doctor. I called an old friend from college, now an ER physician in another city. I gave him a vague story about worrying a supplement was contaminated. He referred me to a forensic toxicologist at a private lab. It would cost thousands. I didn't care. I used a secret credit card she didn't know about, a relic from before our joint accounts. The lab required a blood and urine sample collected under observation to prevent tampering. I told Claire I was going on a weekend fishing trip with a colleague. Instead, I spent Saturday in a sterile clinic giving samples. The wait for results was an agony. I played the perfect tired husband. I let her fuss over me. I even complained about new symptoms, tingling in my hands, blurred vision. She looked concerned, but her eyes, they flickered with something else. Satisfaction. A week later, the email came. The subject line, Urgent Toxicology Report. I opened it in my car. The results detected clinically significant levels of tetrahydrozoline and colchicine in my system. The comment from the toxicologist read, pattern consistent with chronic low-dose administration. These findings are not accidental. Recommend immediate removal from source and contact with law enforcement. There it was, medical proof. I had the video, I had the vial, I had the report, but this wasn't just a crime of passion. The real estate listings, the life insurance policy she'd pushed me to increase last year, this was financial. I logged into our shared computer that night, waiting until she was asleep. I searched the browser history she thought she'd deleted. I found searches for undetectable poisons, chronic kidney failure death, and survivor benefits timeline. My stomach churned. Then I found a hidden folder, password protected. I tried every password I could think of. Our anniversary, her birthday, nothing. Frustrated, I looked at her phone charging on the nightstand. She never left it unlocked. But in that moment she stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Her thumb brushed the fingerprint sensor. The screen lit up, unlocked. This was my chance, and what I saw next changed everything. Her phone was open to a messaging app. A thread with a contact saved as M, the last message, sent an hour ago, read, dosage stabilized, he's compliant, timeline accelerated, proceed with phase 2. My heart hammered against my ribs. Phase 2, I scrolled up. The history was a manual of murder, links to articles about undetectable heart failure, lists of my symptoms with notes like kidney response, optimal, calculations of life insurance payouts, dated from over a year ago. And then a forwarded email. It was to our family doctor, Claire's father's friend. It was from Claire, but written in a tone mimicking me. Doctor, the medication isn't working. I'm having severe depressive thoughts. I fear I may be a danger to myself. She was laying a paper trail for my suicide. I took photos of everything with my own phone, my hands shaking so badly the images blurred. I had to retake them. As I swiped to close the app, I saw another, a secure note. The password hint was our song. I typed in the title. It opened. It was a checklist. 1. Secure medical consensus for anxiety diagnosis. Check. 2. Establish pattern of noncompliance with medication. In progress. 3. Introduce synergistic toxins for cumulative organ failure. In progress. 4. Erect financial safeguards and redirect assets. Check. 5. Prepare psychological narrative for self-harm. In progress. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a project. A 5-phase project with my death as the deliverable. I put her phone back exactly as it was. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the weight of the truth crushing me. She wasn't just trying to kill me. She was engineering an entire story where my death was inevitable and she was the grieving heroine. The next morning, I knew I couldn't go to the police yet. Not with just this. The DHS warning flashed in my mind. Prosecution is difficult. She'd claim I was paranoid, that I'd fabricated it all. The doctor would back her. I needed irrefutable third-party evidence. I needed to understand phase 2. I called Anya, the pharmacist. I met her in the same parking lot. I showed her the photos of the messages. Her face went pale. "You need to get out of that house now," she said. "I can't," I replied. "If I leave, she'll know I'm onto her. She'll disappear or accelerate. I need to know what synergistic toxins means. What works with tetrahydrozoline and colchicine?" Anya, against every professional instinct, researched. She called me later that day, her voice a tense whisper. "There's a known dangerous combination," she said. "It's called a triple threat in toxicology circles. Tetrahydrozoline drops blood pressure and stresses the kidneys. Colchicine attacks the gastrointestinal tract and causes multi-organ failure over time. The third element, it's often an over-the-counter painkiller, like high-dose acetaminophen. It's hard on the liver. Together, they create a perfect storm. The symptoms are all over the map: fatigue, nausea, pain, organ distress. It looks like a tragic, rapid decline from a mysterious illness. Or, it looks like a depressed man who overdosed on his own medications. She was building a chemical house of cards inside me, designed to collapse all at once. I thanked Anya, knowing I was dragging her into my nightmare. My next move was financial. The redirect assets checkmark haunted me. I logged into our joint banking portal from a secure computer at work. I scrutinized every transaction. For months, it looked normal. Bills, groceries, the mortgage. Then I saw it. Small, regular transfers to a new savings account I'd never opened. $500 every 2 weeks. The account was in her name only, but the transfers were automated from our joint checking. She was siphoning. I traced it back 8 months, almost $10,000. But that was petty cash. The life insurance was for $500,000. The house had $200,000 in equity. She was after the big score. I needed a lawyer, but not just any lawyer. I needed someone who understood forensic finance and criminal intent. I found him through a dark web forum on financial crime, a reference buried in a thread about asset protection. His name was Marcus Thorne. He operated out of a nondescript office downtown. His first question was, "How can I help?" It was, "Are you recording this?" I laid it out: the toxicology report, the phone photos, the financial transfers. He listened, stone-faced. When I finished, he steepled his fingers. "You're describing a premeditated homicide for financial gain with elements of factitious disorder imposed on another. The legal term is murder by poisoning. The problem is evidence admissibility. The phone evidence was obtained illegally. The toxicology is strong, but she'll argue you were self-administering due to depression." Then I showed him the video from the hidden camera, her furtive pour into my shake. He nodded slowly. "That's better. That's direct evidence of act. But we need motive beyond money. We need to prove the narrative she's building. We need to catch her in the act of phase 2. Thorne devised a plan. We would give her a controlled opportunity. I would pretend to have a severe episode, a collapse. We would see how she reacted. Would she call 911? Or would she let me languish, or worse, administer the final dose? It was a terrifying gamble. But it was the only way to flip the script from his word against hers to caught in the act. I went home that night and began the performance. I complained of crushing chest pain and blurred vision. I stumbled, I let my speech slur. Claire's reaction was clinical, not panicked. She helped me to the couch. "Let me check your blood pressure," she said calmly. "It's probably just a spike." She fetched her own blood pressure cuff. As she wrapped it around my arm, I watched her eyes. They were calculating. The reading was dangerously low thanks to the toxins still in my system. She murmured. That's not good. You should rest. I'll get your medication. She didn't reach for my prescribed pills. She went to the kitchen. I heard the familiar sound of the blender, the shake. This was it. She was going to give me the cocktail now while I was weak to push me over the edge. My body screamed to run, but I stayed. She returned with the glass. Here, this will help settle you. I took it, pretending to sip. Through my barely open eyes, I saw it. On the counter behind her, next to the blender, was the small brown vial, and next to it, a new bottle. Extra strength acetaminophen, the third element. I coughed, spilling the shake on my shirt. I'm sorry, I'm going to be sick, I mumbled, staggering to the bathroom. I locked the door and dry heaved into the toilet, not from poison but from sheer terror. I had my proof. She had assembled the full triple threat. I texted Thorne a prearranged code from the bathroom. Phase 2 confirmed. All elements present. His reply was instant. Do not consume anything. Maintain performance. Medical extraction in 60 minutes. The next hour was the longest of my life. I lay on the bathroom floor listening. She knocked once. Danny, you okay in there? I groaned in response, just dizzy. I heard her sigh, then her footsteps retreat. She was waiting. She thought I was succumbing inside. At the 59-minute mark, I heard the doorbell ring. Claire's sharp voice. Who is it? A male voice replied. Medical response. We received a call for a fall emergency. Thorne had sent a private medical team, not an ambulance. They were paramedics who worked with his firm for discreet situations. Claire tried to block them. It's just a faint, he's fine now. But the lead paramedic was firm. Ma'am, we have a protocol, we need to assess him. They found me on the bathroom floor. As they checked my vitals, one of them, a woman, subtly swept the brown vial and the acetaminophen bottle into her medical bag while Claire was distracted giving false history. He's been so depressed, Claire was saying, her voice dripping with concern. I've been so worried he'd hurt himself. They loaded me onto a gurney. Claire insisted on coming. At the private clinic, Thorne was waiting. He pulled Claire aside for insurance paperwork. Meanwhile, the doctor on duty, briefed by Thorne, took my blood. This draw would be the clincher, a blood sample taken in a medical facility showing the precise cocktail levels. Chain of custody was flawless. While Claire was occupied, I asked the doctor to check one more thing. I described my symptoms over the months. He nodded grimly. What you're describing is textbook poisoning. We'll test for everything. Then he said something that froze me. Has your wife ever shown an unusual interest in medical procedures or in caring for you when you're sick? The question unlocked a memory. Early in our marriage, I'd had a minor surgery. Claire had been relentless, changing bandages obsessively, insisting on administering painkillers on a strict schedule, seeming almost disappointed when I healed. I'd thought it was love. Now I saw it for what it might have been, a rehearsal. I was admitted overnight for observation. Claire stayed, playing the devoted wife. But that night, as she slept in the chair, Thorne entered my room. He had a file. We traced the bank transfers, he whispered. The siphoned money wasn't just sitting in savings. It was being moved, small increments into a cryptocurrency wallet. And that wallet, it's been receiving identical small deposits from 2 other sources over the past year. My blood ran cold. 2 other sources. Thorne's eyes met mine. Daniel, I don't think you're her first project. I think you're her third. Her third. The words hung in the sterile hospital air. I stared at Thorne, the heart monitor beeping beside me suddenly sounding like a countdown. What are you talking about? He opened the file. The cryptocurrency wallet receiving those small, identical deposits was traced to an offshore exchange. From there, the trail was murky, but the timing was clear. The first external deposit hit the wallet 18 months ago. The second, 9 months ago, each for exactly $5,000. And each deposit preceded a major life event for Claire. 18 months ago, she'd taken a sudden girls' trip to Nevada. She'd come back saying an old friend had been in a car accident. 9 months ago, her uncle in Florida had passed away from sudden organ failure. She, inherited $15,000, she said. It was in a separate account I never saw. Thorne's voice was low. We started digging into those events. The old friend in Nevada was a man named Robert Hayes. He died 2 weeks after Claire's visit. The coroner's report listed cause of death as acute liver and kidney failure, etiology unknown. He was 41. He'd been healthy. The uncle in Florida wasn't a blood relative. He was a retired widower named Arthur Bell, a neighbor Claire had befriended while volunteering. He died after a short, mysterious illness. His estate, worth nearly $200,000, was left to a local animal shelter, but a clause in the will provided a caretaker's bonus of $20,000 to Claire Whitman for her exceptional compassion. She told me it was 15. 2 men, both dead from organ failure. Both had Claire as a sudden, devoted caregiver in their final months. Both had her as a financial beneficiary. The pattern was a siren. She wasn't just trying to kill me. She was a serial poisoner. This was her profession. I felt the world tilt. The loving wife, the caring nurse, it was a hunting disguise. The DHS warning about the trend took on a new, personal horror. She wasn't a trend. She was a pioneer. I was her most ambitious project yet, a live-in target with a shared life that provided perfect cover. I was discharged the next day against medical advice. Claire fussed, but I saw the tension in her jaw. The medical intervention had spooked her. Thorne's plan was now critical. We had to move from defense to offense. We had to prove the pattern. My first stop wasn't home. It was the office of a private investigator Thorne retained, a woman named Vega who specialized in digital forensics and financial reconstruction. Her workspace was a cave of glowing screens. I gave her everything: the names, the dates, Claire's digital footprints. We need to find the connection, I said. How she picks them, how she gets close. Vega worked for 48 hours straight. She found it on the dark web in a forum buried under layers of encryption, a user with the handle White Coat Angel. The posts were clinical, detached, questions about drug interactions, requests for sources of pure colchicine, discussions on simulating autoimmune disorders. The writing style was unmistakable, Claire's precise medical jargon. White Coat Angel had been active for 3 years. In one thread, she asked for advice on patient compliance in resistant subjects. A reply suggested using a trusted family doctor to establish a baseline diagnosis. That was our doctor. He wasn't just a friend of her father. He was likely an unwitting pawn, his prescription pad her first weapon. But the real breakthrough came from the cryptocurrency. Vega followed the money from the offshore exchange. It didn't go to a shopping spree. It went to fund more research. Payments to a shadowy online lab in Europe that specialized in custom compounds. Orders for pure, pharmaceutical-grade toxins. Receipts for textbooks on forensic pathology, how to understand and evade autopsy detection. Claire wasn't spending the money. She was reinvesting it into her craft. This was her life's work. I had to go home. I had to act normal. But now every room felt like a crime scene. The kitchen was her lab. The bedroom was her observation ward. I started secretly documenting everything. I wore a button camera. I planted voice-activated recorders. I needed her to slip, to say something to someone. The opportunity came 4 days later. Her sister Jenna visited. I was supposedly napping upstairs, but a recorder was in the vent above the kitchen table. I heard the clink of wine glasses. "You're being too careful with this one," Jenna said. "He's smarter than the others," Claire replied, her voice cool. "The hospital thing was a fluke, but it's fine. The narrative is set. The doctor has him flagged as depressive. The next episode will be the last. The insurance company will see a clear case of self-harm following a long decline. And the stuff from before, the Nevada guy and the Florida old man. Unrelated tragedies. No one connects them. They were practice. This is the masterpiece." My blood turned to ice. Jenna knew. Her own sister was an accomplice. This was a family business. The recording was gold for Thorne, but it also meant the conspiracy was wider, deeper. Thorne listened to the audio, his expression grim. "This changes the game," he said. "We're not just building a case against Claire. This is a conspiracy to commit murder. Jenna is complicit. The doctor might be negligent, but he could be manipulated into testifying. We need to bring in law enforcement now, but we have to do it right. If we go to the local police, it might get buried, or worse, tipped off." He had a contact in the state attorney's office, a prosecutor who handled complex financial and homicide cases. We arranged a meeting under the guise of consulting on an estate fraud matter. In a secure conference room, we played the recording. We showed the toxicology reports, the financial trails, the dark web posts. The prosecutor, a woman named Grayson, listened without a word. When it ended, she leaned back. "You're describing a serial offender with a sophisticated MO," she said. "The legal term is homicidal poisoning in a domestic setting with financial motivation. It's rare to have this much pre-incident evidence. Usually, we get the autopsy." She agreed to open a formal investigation, but it would be covert. No arrests yet. They needed to trace the toxins to a physical source Claire controlled. They needed to corroborate the Nevada and Florida cases. The state investigators moved quickly. They exhumed the body of Robert Hayes in Nevada. New toxicology tests found traces of colchicine in his bone marrow. They reviewed Arthur Bell's medical records in Florida. His symptoms in his final weeks were textbook for chronic tetrahydrozoline poisoning. The local doctor had missed it entirely. Claire's name was on both men's visitor logs at their respective hospitals dozens of times. The net was closing, but Claire could feel it. She became more vigilant. She started checking my phone when I showered. She questioned my fatigue, suggesting maybe I should see a specialist, one she would choose. I knew the clock was ticking. The next episode she mentioned was coming. Thorne and prosecutor Grayson devised a final play. We would use her plan against her. We would give her the perfect opportunity to administer the fatal dose, but in a completely controlled environment. Then we would take her down in the act. It required my full commitment. I had to appear to be at my absolute weakest. I stopped pretending to take the shakes, letting the real symptoms from the residual toxins in my system take over. I lost weight. I developed a tremor. I let her see me looking at life insurance documents online, playing into her suicidal narrative. I was the perfect, crumbling victim. She bought it. The caring mask slipped more often, revealing the impatient strategist beneath. She began preparing more frequently, spending time in the garage with a locked toolbox she thought I didn't know about. Vega, the investigator, had planted a micro camera in there. We watched her assemble a kit. Syringes, vials of clear liquid, alcohol wipes. She was moving beyond the shakes. Phase 2 was over. This was the finale. The state investigators had a wiretap on her phone. We heard her call Jenna. "It's time. This weekend. He's ready. It'll look like an overdose of his own medication. I've got the note drafted on his computer." That was our signal. The plan was set. On Saturday night, I would stage a severe collapse. She would, according to her pattern, discover me and try to help. The house would be surrounded by state police. Forensic teams were on standby. An ambulance with a medical crew working with the prosecutor would be minutes away, ready to intervene the moment she administered the poison. Saturday arrived. I felt a surreal calm. I was no longer the victim. I was the bait in a trap for a predator. I ate dinner with her, pushing food around my plate. I complained of a crushing headache, blurred vision. I stumbled going up the stairs. She watched, a clinical gleam in her eye. "Just rest, Danny," she said softly. "I've got your medication ready for later." I lay in bed, waiting. The wire I wore felt cold against my skin. Through the window, I could see the faint shadow of an unmarked car parked down the street. The house was silent. Then I heard her footsteps on the stairs. They were slow, deliberate. This was it. The final act of her masterpiece was beginning, but she had no idea the script had been rewritten. The bedroom door opened. Claire stood silhouetted in the hallway light, holding a small tray. On it was a glass of water and a syringe filled with a clear liquid. Her expression was a masterpiece of fabricated concern. "Danny, you awake? I need to give you your injection. The doctor called it in for your pain." I groaned, playing my part. My heart was a drum against my ribs. What is it?" "Just something to help you rest," she said, moving to the bedside. Her movements were smooth, practiced. She set the tray down, tore open an alcohol wipe. "This will only pinch a little." As she swabbed a spot on my arm, I gave the signal. A soft, pained cough into the microphone wire. In the hallway downstairs, a floorboard creaked. Claire's head twitched, but she focused on the syringe, removing the cap. She was committed. Just as she poised the needle over my skin, the world erupted. The bedroom door burst inward. Shouts of "Police! Freeze!" Floodlights from the hallway blinded us. Claire jerked back, the syringe flying from her hand and shattering on the nightstand. She screamed, a raw sound of shock and fury. Hands grabbed her. She was pulled away, thrashing. "What are you doing? He's sick. He needs help." She played the role until the end. A detective in plain clothes stepped to my bedside. "Mr. Brooks, we've got you. EMS is here." The next minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. Claire and Jenna, who had been waiting downstairs, were handcuffed and read their rights. The charge: attempted murder. Forensic techs in white suits descended, bagging the syringe, the tray, the vial on the tray. They took the locked toolbox from the garage. Inside, they found a pharmacist's treasure trove. Vials of tetrahydrozoline, colchicine, concentrated liquid acetaminophen, empty capsules, syringes, and a detailed logbook. The logbook was the final nail. It contained entries for Subject RH, Robert Hayes, Subject AB, Arthur Bell, and Subject DB, me. Dosages, symptom progressions, financial calculations. It was a serial killer's ledger, written in my wife's neat handwriting. I was taken to the hospital not as a patient, but as a witness giving his statement. The state's case was overwhelming. The wiretap recordings, the video from the kitchen, the toxicology reports, the financial trails, the dark web posts under White Coat Angel, and now the physical evidence from the house. Claire and Jenna were denied bail. The media storm was instant. The poisoning wife, the black widow of the suburbs. My face was blurred in reports, but my story became a national cautionary tale. The Department of Homeland Security cited the case in a follow-up bulletin, noting the sophisticated, multi-phase method as an example of the evolving threat they had warned about. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Claire's defense argued she was a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, now called factitious disorder imposed on another. They claimed she had a pathological need to create illness to then play the caregiver, but prosecutor Grayson dismantled that. She showed the financial records, the life insurance policies, the cryptocurrency investments. This wasn't about caregiving. It was about profit and control. The murders of Hayes and Bell were entered as evidence of a pattern. The jury saw a calculated serial killer, not a mentally ill woman. Jenna, in a plea deal to avoid a murder charge, testified against her sister. She revealed Claire had always been obsessed with true crime stories about undetectable poisons. She said Claire saw it as the perfect crime, a way to reshape her life by eliminating the people in it, all while collecting the resources to live freely. I was to be the biggest score, funding a new, anonymous life abroad. The verdict was guilty on all counts: 2 counts of first-degree murder for Hayes and Bell, and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder for me, plus a litany of conspiracy, fraud, and forgery charges. Claire was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jenna received 25 years for her role as an accomplice. The family doctor lost his license for gross negligence. In the aftermath, I was left with a hollow victory. I owned a house that felt like a museum of horrors. I had my health, though the road to detoxifying my body was long and painful. The damage to my kidneys was significant but not irreversible. I would live, but I was forever changed. I sold the house. I donated a portion of the life insurance money. the money she'd meant to collect, to organizations researching domestic violence and poisoning detection. I kept in touch with Anya, the pharmacist who had first warned me. She saved my life with her courage, and she became an advocate for pharmacist training in spotting medication tampering. A year after the trial, I was cleaning out a safety deposit box, one Claire never knew about. In it, I found an old journal of mine from early in our relationship. Flipping through it, I found a pressed flower, and behind it, a single folded note in Claire's writing. It was dated from our first anniversary. It read, "He is kind, he is stable, he is predictable, he will be the foundation, the perfect foundation to build upon." I had always thought she loved me, but from the very beginning she was only surveying the land. I was never her husband. I was her construction site. I closed the box. The past was a locked room. I walked out into the sunlight, the noise of the city feeling alive and real. I had survived a plot written in poison. Now I had to write the rest of the story myself. A story where trust is hard, but where the air is clean and every meal is my own. The story that began with a warning at a pharmacy counter is more than just my story. It's a window into a dark, evolving trend that authorities are only beginning to quantify. The Department of Homeland Security warning wasn't an abstraction. It was a prediction of cases like mine, of methods being refined in plain sight. Poison is the perfect weapon for our time. It's quiet, it's patient. It hides behind the facade of care, in the hands of a trusted partner, in the medicine we're told will heal us. The substances are everyday items, eye drops, painkillers, supplements, chosen because they blur the line between illness and attack. They create a reality where the victim doubts their own body, while the perpetrator plays the concerned hero. My survival wasn't just luck. It was a chain of small rebellions. Listening to a gut feeling that something was wrong, questioning a narrative that felt too perfect, and crucially, encountering one person outside the web, the pharmacist Anya, who chose professional conscience over blind protocol. That's the fragile defense against this trend, awareness and the courage to speak a terrible truth aloud. The lingering question isn't just how many others are out there. It's how we rebuild the concept of trust after such a fundamental betrayal. Trust in our partners, in our medicine, in our own senses. I don't have a simple answer. I live with a new calibration, a respectful vigilance. I check my own prescriptions. I listen to my body without panic but with attention. I know that love should not feel like a clinical trial. Claire's motive was a twisted mix of greed and a desire for absolute control. But the method reveals a deeper, more unsettling truth. In an age of information, the tools for perfect crimes are democratized. The knowledge once locked in medical textbooks is now a dark web search away. The challenge for the rest of us is to match that awareness with compassion and with the resolve to see what is hidden in the light. If you take anything from this, let it be this. The most dangerous stories are the ones that don't look like stories at all. They look like normal life with a slight, unexplained ache. They sound like concern. They feel like love. Pay attention to the inconsistencies, the overeagerness to care, the strange isolation. Your vigilance is not paranoia. It is your first line of defense. This has been the story of the prescription that was. Thank you for listening. If you found this perspective valuable, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the stories hidden in plain sight. The world is full of unseen scripts. It helps to learn how to read them.